Welcome to Home Team Advantage. I'm Gary Gimbetti along with Mike Egan here to discuss today's topics with sports and or of sports with only one take so far.
Yep.
So last week we had 3 or 4 takes before we actually got off the ground. But we're very fortunate here to have with us Pat Micheletti, whose shows include, he's sitting right between us here, but he's beyond the pod and beyond the pond. And Big Ten.
Well, I did try to find that life-size cutout. We can, throw them right here.
Yeah, where is it?
We'd have to go to the arena maybe and steal it off the wall. And we could have that
Right.
picture here.
Yeah.
So then people would actually know what you look like. So
Right,
you're kind of
right.
you're the disembodied voice of Home Team Advantage. So
But you're
Right.
you're a lot better looking like you are now than we are.
yeah. But hey, thank you. We always appreciate
Yep.
when you come on, and we know you have a busy schedule, so we'll hit you up with some questions here. With first off, I mean, the Wild obviously went through a tough time, and now they're bouncing back. Why do we get so concerned when something like that happens? Because it is professional hockey, and stuff like that's going to happen at times.
Well, because Minnesota fans live day to day with every game. And that's the nature of the Minnesota sports fan. And so, listen, you play an 82-game season. You're going to have your ups. You're going to have your downs. Every team in the league does, and it's all about playing good at the right time and playing consistent enough throughout the year to avoid major pitfalls. And so if you can do that, you make the playoffs and you go from there. And that's kind of where they're at. They're playing better now, after that 2 or 3 week plunge, if you will. But I think they understand what it takes for them to win, how they have to play to win, and they're starting to get that back, and they got away from it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously last year we know what kind of year they had. This year it hasn't been quite the same. Is this year maybe a better for them because last year they played at such a high level through that whole season?
Well, listen, no one likes to lose, and no one likes to go in slumps, but they happen. And I tell people this all the time. It doesn't. Every year is different, and that could be guys having career years to guys having injuries to a completely 5 or 6 new guys. So every year is different. So you really can't compare one year to the next because things change. So, and they knew that they were going to have a little bit different team this year. I think they've been a little disappointed in the performances of some of the guys who did have career years.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they were expecting that those guys would top what they did a year ago, but at least produce a little more than they've produced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a problem. But you know what? They've won 3 in a row now, and I think are starting to feel a little bit better and understanding that they got to work to get in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that any trades will be coming up, Pat? I mean, Fleury doesn't seem to be playing very well, and
yeah.
Put on your general
Do I
manager's
think
hat.
here's the deal on the trades. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said they're sellers. If you're asking me today, I would say they're buyers. And if you ask me next week, I will say, well, how did they do? How did they do this whole week? And if they continue to move in the right direction, and they have a lot of assets to give away, they have a lot of money that they could spend for the rest of this season, not next, but this season. There are going to be players available. Now, what Bill Guerin's got to decide is, if I make a deal, does that give us a better chance of getting to the Stanley Cup,
Right.
and also weigh in, do I want to give up some of the assets that we have going forward to make that happen? Knowing Bill Guerin, he wants to win every year, every time, every day. That's in his DNA, winning, and so he's got a lot of prospects available to potentially give up. It's just how many, and would he be willing to give up? And who's the player you're getting, and does that player want to play here? So a lot of factors involved, but I think if the right deal came along and he'd have an opportunity to upgrade the team, I think he would. And I say that because in this year, when you look in the Western Conference, there is not one team, not one, that at least scares me. A team that they couldn't beat. So it wasn't like last year where, I don't care who they obtained, no one was going to beat Colorado. They were destined to win the Cup a year ago. But this year in the West, hey, it's up for grabs.
What maybe you can explain the Ryan and O'Reilly thing. I guess I still don't get it. Maybe I don't know if you understand it, but maybe you can explain it better.
Well, basically, they spent $74,000 to get a fourth round pick. That's the basis of why they did it. Okay, they with the extra money that they have in the cap, that provided Toronto and St. Louis to complete a deal that they wanted to get done, but they couldn't do it because of the financial of taking on some salary. So Minnesota agrees to do that, but hey, we need something also. What are you going to give us? And they get a fourth round pick, and in essence, it really pays for itself. And so I think it was a really good move because if St. Louis gets in the playoffs, guess what? Ryan O'Reilly's not there. Yeah. And you want him out of your division. You want him out of the conference. And so they really paid 74. You can look at it from this perspective of paying 74,000 to get him out of the conference. And so, I think that was a smart move on Guerin's part.
Well, I was going to just say that. No, you just answered my question about moving him out of the Western Conference. So that explains it a little bit better, and it does make it a lot better. What about the Gustafson here, Philippe Gustafson? How do you think he's? Last year we were unsure about him when we got him. This year he's stepped up.
That was my biggest concern going into the year was how many wins are you going to get from your backup goaltender, an unproven backup goaltender, and he struggled coming out of the gate, but he's hot right now. He's hot. So I don't think Dean Evison would ever say this, but I think he'll continue to be the guy while he's hot. We have not seen the last of Marc-Andre Fleury. Anyone telling you that is crazy. But you got to ride the hot guy right now, and he's playing well. And people want to make more out of it than what it really is. He's a guy that's playing hot now, and you play him and you ride him. But to anoint him number one, I think it's kind of silly because ultimately, you're going to need both goaltenders anyway, and so that's where I'm at anyway.
Let's say you are a GM, Pat, and you want to make a trade. What area of the team you would think they need the most help? Defense, offense.
Well, I think they need a defense. Well, I take that back because Brock Faber, who plays at the University of Minnesota, will jump in their lineup once his season is done. Unfortunately, that may not be until the last weekend of college hockey at the Frozen Four. Now, and then whether they decide to use him or not then. But regardless, they most definitely need a forward. Now, would that be a center or a wing? My preference would be a centerman. They need someone for Boldy, and they just don't have enough depth scoring right now, and they need another playmaker, another experienced guy in there, and so I hope they go that direction. But I also wouldn't mind getting another defenseman in there also. Their DR playing a little bit better, but I still think there's room for improvement in the back end, if you want to make a long playoff run.
Do you see any big names being traded in the NHL?
Oh, I do.
this
I
year?
think Patrick Kane's going to get traded. I think Eric Carlson, who might win the MVP and the Norris from San Jose, I think he's going to get dealt. Jacob Chikrin from Arizona might be the most highly sought after trade in the NHL. And he's a young kid. He's got 2 years left on his contract that pays $4.5 million, and so he would be a steal. Now, the problem with that is every team in the league wants him, and Arizona can just sit back and say, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. Here's what the asking price is, and which team is going to be willing to give that up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's 24 years old, I think. 23, and so he's awfully young too. So, those guys, Timo Meyer, is rumored to go to New Jersey, but he's going to get a qualifying offer of $10 million next year.
Mm-hmm.
What team can afford that? So, there's going to be a lot. There's a lot of good players available, and it's just which team is going to be able to handle it financially and be willing to give up prospects.
Do you see any of those three guys wearing the Wild uniform?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think Carlson will end up in Edmonton. I think Kane will end up in Dallas. I think Chikrin will end up with either Winnipeg or Toronto. That's my guess right now. But things could change. I know Boston is desperately looking for a defenseman, and the problem is, can they fit him under the cap? They may need a third team. They may need a fourth team to get involved. So a lot of moving parts coming up to the deadline.
Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't help us out at all. No. But I did hear though on a Gopher broadcast about a month ago, Ben Clymer said if Faber does join that lineup, they might have to move a defenseman. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, they've been trying to trade Matt Dumba for a long time. Now, they're either going to trade him or just let him walk this summer, because they're not going to be able to pay him $6 million next year. I don't necessarily, listen, you can have extra guys on your roster for the playoffs, so that doesn't necessarily mean they have to move a guy. They may have to move a guy out of the lineup, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to move a guy. Who are you going to move? That's the question.
And I don't want to necessarily see Dumba get traded. I mean, he's been good for this franchise. So it's like,
well, of all the defensemen that can be traded, it would be, you could trade Dumba, you could trade Addison, or you could trade Goligoski. I don't think they'd want to move Middleton because he's in on a good contract and he does a good job. Goligoski doesn't want to sit. Okay, potentially you might be able to move him. However, he's got a no trade clause in his contract. You're not going to move Brodin, and you're not going to move Spurgeon. So I don't know. I don't know for sure if they would move a D or if anyone wants any of these Ds. So, who knows? They've been trying to trade Matt Dumba for a long time, and there's been no takers. So what does that tell you?
It tells me that he's our Sano.
Yeah.
Yeah, except
Very well
he doesn't strike out as much as Sano, though, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
More consistent, so.
Yep.
And all that. But yeah, well, speaking of your alma mater, I mean, how do you hope they finish the season? They play Ohio State this weekend. Already clinched the Big Ten and got to buy into the semis.
Could be the best Gopher team in the history of the program.
Wow.
They are that good. There's never been a decor like it. There's never been a line with Snuggerud, Nyes, and Cooley ever in the program. They're deep. They're awfully good. And but as we all know in sports, in a one game showdown, anything can happen. You get a bad break, you get this, that. A lot of things can happen, but there's not a more talented team in college hockey.
Mm-hmm. Now, weren't you on a line with his father, Snuggerud?
He was, yes, my senior year, and David Snuggerud was a freshman at the time, and he was a heck of a player. His son's better. And I tell David that all the time. But it was, the kid is a phenomenal player.
Come on, now that's the best line in Gopher hockey history, right there. You and Snuggerud and whoever else was on your line.
And no, Paul Broughton. We meat and potatoed it. And we are nowhere near that line.
Okay.
awfully good.
What do you know about the high school stuff now? Are you in tune to that, or do you kind of not?
Well, as we get closer now, I pay more attention. I just don't have the time during the season, at the college and the NHL. But I'll get more in tune with it as we get to tournament week.
Will you be doing any games? I would assume.
I will not because of my college schedule.
Okay.
So,
all right.
yeah, I'll have Big Ten stuff, and I'll have, obviously, the Gopher radio too, and a combination of one or the other. So, I will be tied up with college hockey.
It'd be really nice to see you do a couple high school games because Lou Nanny's really getting the wear on everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe at some point in time I'll get there, but it's that's the problem with being a broadcaster in hockey is that you've got everything happens on the weekend, and you get pulled in 50 different directions, and you gotta say no sometimes to certain games and that nature. So, but we make the best of it and go from there.
So we're going to put you on the spot here. College, who do you think's going to win? NHL, who do you think's going to win?
I think Minnesota will win the national championship this year. I really do. I put Minnesota, Denver, probably Quinnipiac, and probably Michigan in the Frozen Four. I think those are the best four teams in college hockey. I think Edmonton will play in the Stanley Cup final. And I'll give you 8 teams in the East that could win in the East because the East is that good.
Yep.
I think your Stanley Cup champ will come from the East. Could be the Rangers, could be Florida, could be Tampa, could be Toronto, could be Boston. It could be Carolina. All those teams are neck and neck, and they're all really, really good. So, but I think this is the year that Connor McDavid makes it to the Stanley Cup final.
So you're really going out on a limb then when you say that, when you talk about the East.
Yeah. Yeah. I really can't. It's so hard to pick because, there's so many good teams. It's ridiculous.
Well, hey, we appreciate the time. I'm sure you've got a busy schedule, so thank you for joining the show.
Any time for my friends from Hibbing. Anytime.
We
All right,
are.
you guys take care.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's interesting about the University of Minnesota,
Well, we don't usually say that a whole. I mean, you could say that every year,
right?
but then, like you said, a one-game format. All it takes is a hot goalie that game,
Yeah.
and you're knocked out. But yeah, they do have one of the better, more talented teams, along with Michigan, obviously. And he didn't mention Michigan,
Yep. And Quinnipiac.
but Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac. Is that in Michigan?
No, that's out. I think
east?
in New York somewhere. Maybe. I'm not positive about that, but yeah. No, but thanks to Pat Micheletti for joining us. I mean, he's a busy man.
Well, we're big time now. We're international.
Yes. So.
We're like a trucking company.
Yeah. But yeah, I was getting a phone call there from my editor, so I don't know what that's about.
You're fired.
Yeah. Let me see for a second. I won't put this on here.
So the boys' high school team, just to fill in this error while we're waiting for Gary to get his message that he's got to go somewhere. They play Monday.
Play Monday against Hermantown, 5:30 at the Amsoil Arena. Hey, you're there. You got by your first round game.
Yep.
Braden Boyer, you have to give a shout out to him. The last 3 years in the section quarterfinals, he shut out Greenway, Rock Ridge, and now Proctor. Of course, he's got a lot of help from his teammates too,
Right.
but still, he's the last line of defense, and he came up big. Well, actually, his team came up big in the last 7.5 minutes, or for 5 minutes of a 7.5 minute period, because Hibbing took a major penalty and shorthanded for 5 minutes. The team in front of him, 7 guys, and I'm not going to name any names because I not want to forget somebody, but they all did a fantastic job killing that penalty and actually had a couple scoring opportunities in the process. So they didn't get, well, I don't believe they got a shot on net Proctor during that time. And then obviously once that penalty ended, they still had 2.5 minutes with their goalie pulled. So in reality, like I was saying, they were 7.5 minutes shorthanded.
Yep.
And that's when Proctor made a push, was in that last 2.5 minutes. And
Now Proctor is moving up next year, correct?
I don't know, it's not Proctor,
No,
Denfeld and Rock
Denfeld.
Ridge are moving up
Okay.
next year. So,
Well,
yeah.
Everybody's picking Hermantown and Rock Ridge in the final.
Well, you know,
You never know, though.
well, you're not going out on a limb by doing that. I know I've said that twice now, but yeah, Hermantown's the top of the class until somebody knocks them off their perch. So we'll see. I don't know. The way I heard about what I heard about the seed meeting, I don't care for either of the other two teams because I think Hibbing got
The shaft?
the shaft as far as the seeding goes. Now, Rock Ridge may have deserved the number 2 seed because they did beat us in that last game.
Yeah.
But Hibbing had a better record than Denfeld, better section record than Denfeld. They tied their only meeting of the year, so Denfeld can't say they beat us, and we can't say they beat them. And, the 3rd seed
That went to Denfeld.
avoids Hermantown until the finals.
Right.
So I don't know if there was something fishy going on there or whatever, but you can't trust coaches to vote
No.
on that stuff. I mean, all they got to do is get together, call each other, talk to each other, and say, yeah, hey, let's do this. And they did it somehow.
Yeah. Now, does hockey go by the QRC thing too, like basketball?
Well, that's what I'm unsure of. Now, Rock Ridge had a higher QRF than Hibbing, but like only by about point something, like 0.5 or 1.5, which is in a.
Yeah.
There's a certain standard there where you can challenge that by a vote by going over individual or overall records and stuff like that. I don't get it, but
Yep.
That's too far out of my
Just-
price range.
Just so we can explain to people out there, the QRF
F.
is based on who you play during the year and how that team stands as far as the standing. So if you play Hermantown, you get X amount of points. If you play Greenway, you get X amount of points. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're from what I have heard about, but from basketball, is that you're better off. You're better not beating a team by 50 points. You're better off losing to a better team.
And you,
Then you get, and I don't know how they accumulate the points.
right.
I mean, that's totally beyond my pay grade. So, but yeah, they didn't necessarily use that criteria during this seed meeting, but it turned work. That's how it worked out. You're gonna have to play Hermantown anyway at some point.
Right.
You may as well get them in the semifinals, and maybe that's the game you can knock them off in. No, they're going to be ready. Obviously, they're not.
I'm
gonna,
sure they will be.
Yeah.
And now they've got an extra 4 days to get ready. So
Yeah, because they're playing Monday at 5:30, and then Rock Ridge and Denfeld will play at 7:30, both at Amsoil.
I assume those are on TV.
I don't think those might be on TV. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm not positive.
The finals. The finals are
Finals will probably be on TV.
Yeah.
Yes.
should be played in Hibbing, but
Well,
they used to.
yeah.
Every
That
other
would
year.
that would be neutral ice.
They're like the Shrine Circuits every other year.
Yeah. So, boys basketball got their, I think, third win, beating Twin Cities Academy,
Nice.
Great River. They're on down to the cities this weekend to play Higher Ground tonight or on Friday, and then Breck on Saturday. So but they had 7 games in 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, they played almost a third of their season in
In a 7-day period.
yeah,
Wow.
or a 10-day
10,
period. Yeah, but yeah. So that was a tough stretch for them, but I'm sure they love playing in the games more than they like practice.
So that's the actual name of a school, Higher Ground?
Higher Ground. They beat us here by 10 earlier in the season, and who knows, maybe they can turn things around.
Yeah.
Breck, I don't know about. I'm not sure how they are. I know Jamie Steinberg's is an AD down there. So
Oh,
maybe,
really?
So maybe
Oh.
maybe he had something to do with getting
Yeah.
that matchup. So thank you, Jamie. Play a different school anyway, and
Private school.
yeah. So,
Used to be known as a big hockey school.
Oh yeah, it still is, I
Yep.
think. And then the girls' basketball game tonight, Thursday, has been postponed till tomorrow night, so they'll play Cloquet here, 7:15. So that's off. Swimming is still on. Section prelims today at 5, and then the finals are at Saturday. So those are still on as far as I know right now at this point. So
A lot of good stuff going on right now.
a lot of it.
So end of the year, right?
Yep. Well, we want to again thank Pat Micheletti for joining us. For Mike Egan, I'm Gary Gimbetti. We'll see you again next week on Home Team Advantage.
Hibbing Public Access Television would like to thank U.S. Bank for providing us with studio space.